No pressure here. Hi, I am Meredith Goldstein, the longtime advice columnist for the Boston Globe. Should not shock you that I'm very interested in a film about a woman who is single, who meddles in the love lives of others, despite not having much of an education about what to do with her own. I'm so delighted that you're here with me tonight. I'm also delighted to have with us the star and director of tonight's film. Can you give a big round of applause for Autumn and Anya, who are here tonight? As they get themselves settled, I need to tell you that we were waiting backstage, and there is nothing more delightful than seeing someone watch from behind the screen the wonderful film they have made and lip-syncing the lines. I feel like I've been given...
I wonder who that could be.
I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm seeing it in double. So, and what lines, right? The text here is pretty tremendous. Whenever I hear, this is the second time I got to see this tonight, and if I loved you less, I could talk about it more.
If I loved you less, then I could talk about it more.
Oh my God, that just makes me want to lie down on the floor and just hear it said to me over and over and over again.
Oh, man. He does that, yeah.
Yeah.
Johnny slayed us all, yeah.
We'll get there. But Autumn, I want to talk to you about this book, this story, the timelessness of it, and just can you take us on the journey of getting this film to screen?
Well, I was asked to pitch on it, which was, like I dropped my phone and I was like, oh my God. And then I pulled myself together, and I had about a month to get my pitch together. So I went deep into a rabbit hole, and I fell very much in love. I mean, my mother's English, so I'm everything, British. I'm an Anglophile, I think, because I grew up in Los Angeles. So, it was sort of my fantasy, land, all this kind of stuff. And I loved period movies, good and bad. But yeah, so I pitched on it, and I got it. And Anya was part of my pitch, and so was Johnny Flynn and Mia Goth and Bill Nighy. And as soon as I found out that I got it, I had to fly that night to secure the talent. And we were supposed to meet for an hour.
That sounds like a heist movie. Secure the talent. I like it.
We'll play Emma. I think we were supposed to meet for an hour, and we met for 5. Yeah.
Secured.
Yeah.
Autumn was my love story. She walked into the restaurant, because, by the way, the way that, sorry, can I preempt?
Yeah.
The way I came to this project, I got a phone call. I landed in New York, and I got a phone call from a producer that I did not know, that is now a dear friend, because I made this movie. And he just said, I know that you've got lots of projects on this year. Please don't say yes to anything. I have something for you, full stop. And I was like, cool, okay, great. And then he called me an hour later, and he was like, it's Emma, and we're flying in the director to meet you. And then Autumn walked in through the front door, we locked eyes, we fell in love. 5 hours later, we were making the movie, essentially. And I don't remember saying yes, but I'm here. So I think we made it.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, I mean, you have this incredible background for a filmmaker, and it is no surprise, or should be no surprise to anyone here, that you're a photographer, and have done, beautiful photography for a very long time. And I love seeing films by someone who, anything in this film is a still, and the production design is gorgeous. And, can you talk about transitioning in that way?
I started out as a rock photographer, I studied ballet for 14 years, and then I went to drama school because a really cute guy went there, and that was pretty much the only reason why. And then, I fell in love with rock and roll, and I knew how to take pictures because my father was a photographer. I just kept getting asked to do more, and I think that I always tried to make my photos look like scenes from movies. I think it was a way of making my subjects feel more comfortable. maybe a way of allowing them to expose themselves, but giving them a character to hide behind, just to protect themselves on tour and in the photos. So, I think for that reason, then Elliott Smith asked me to do my first music video, and so I really feel like I'm a director because of Elliott, because he told the record company he wouldn't do a video unless I directed it, and we hadn't discussed this. And someone called me up. Apparently, Elliott won't do a video unless you direct it, and I was like, oh shit, okay. And I just had to make him proud. So I fell in love with directing then, but it was a long process. I think I didn't go to film school, so I think every video and every commercial I did, and it was a long road breaking into all of those things. I was always up against a wall, climbing over one. But so I think that I'm 49 and I'm doing my first film, but I sort of feel like I was preparing in pieces along the way, if that makes sense.
I want to talk about the entry point for you with this story. So many of us at different ages found this. There was a woman at work who described this as an adaptation of Clueless, and I was like, well,
I've read that, and I'm like, oh no.
That's fine with me. I love Clueless.
Right? I mean, however you get there, right? You get there. But tell me about just, your discovery of this story and your initial thought. I mean, what a character.
Yes, Emma's yeah. I first read the book actually when I was 11 because I thought smart people read that book, and I wanted to be clever, and I thought I understood so much. I understood nothing. But then I read it again at 15, and then I read it before taking this on, and I think I love Emma because she is so complicated, and she can be both so wonderful and charming and has a good heart, but also such a brat and so snobby and I guess the phrase in England is up yourself, but that's kind of Emma. But something else that I really enjoyed about playing the scenes, especially with Johnny, is that she can have the worst intentions, but she's so smart that what she's actually saying is correct. And you cannot fault her on it. And I'm just like, oh, Emma, you won that one for the wrong reasons. When Autumn and I first met, the first thing that we said to each other, other than I love you, was Austen herself said that she'd written a character that no one but herself would much like. And I said, can I play her that way? And Austen was like...
And I was like, duh.
Yeah. Let's make her spiky. Let's start off with somebody that's quite unlikable and have them grow, because I'm not particularly interested in a story where somebody starts off charming, is in the middle charming, and then ends up sweetly charming. It's far more interesting to have somebody that's I kind of want to reach into the screen and shake you a little bit, because what are you doing with your life? But also, by the end of it, she's grown. She's not changed. This isn't The Taming of the Shrew. She's still very much herself, but she's humbled.
And I loved, in particular, being with this audience during the sort of picnic lawn scene, which is so deeply uncomfortable.
We've all been to parties like that, right?
Yeah, it's the worst lawn party ever, and what it's like a perfect scene, because it does show that just discomfort and social mess of it all. Tell me about filming that scene in particular, because when I left the theater the first time, I thought, I just want to go back and dissect every little facial expression in that scene, because
cool.
There's a lot about seeing this movie a second time that I highly recommend, which is that this time, the food, I was able to pay a lot of attention to the desserts.
I love cake.
See it 2 times. But tell me about that scene, because it's a great look at so many people at once.
My editor and I called that the doom section. It's like, bum, 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 this party's gonna suck. It was pretty important to me that the warning came in before we got to that scene, and that's why I used the Beethoven piece, the Glenn Gould piece. It's a tiny little, but only Glenn Gould could play Beethoven with so much drama, I think, and I think it was such an idyllic setting, and I had always felt, and I think we'd all talked about, that if this Box Hill scene doesn't affect you, the movie's, kind of fucked. Because,
no pressure.
Yeah. Because I think it is such a tiny thing that needs to feel like her, the world, her world, Miss Bates' world, and her world has been shattered. And I think that I also, the plan was, I was hoping it would work, was that would give the audience permission to laugh at Miss Bates, and we're laughing with, and we're like, oh yeah, she is annoying. We're laughing with Emma, and she talks too much and she takes up too much room. She's so big and blah blah blah. So that at that moment the audience kind of laughs, and then feels guilty.
That's what happened here.
Yeah.
There was like a chuckle and then oh no,
yeah.
we're all terrible.
Yeah, and the fun, it's like, I think, and Anya did such an amazing job that day, because knowing this was such a crucial scene, she was willing to give me a few different versions of like, I'm mean to hurt you, and like I just came out, yeah, I mean, you could speak to that. And after each one, she'd go, Autumn, Yeah.
I've always had a very close relationship with my characters, and I've always been able to, I've always had to love them and be on their side for everything. And Emma's the first character where we felt so much like twin sisters, and we were so like close in this weird way that I would go out to Autumn, and I really struggled the first time, but like through gritted teeth, I was like, I don't like Emma right now. I can't do this. And she was like, babe, that's great. It means you have high expectations for her. It's going to be fine. And I was like, it doesn't feel nice to be mean to Miranda. But Miranda was amazing about it, because every time we'd finish the scene, she'd be like, it's good. Like, you're supposed to be doing this. It's actually written in a script. And I was like...
And also, Miranda is 6'2" and I'm 6'2", so there was this other reason for casting her, was that at times my height has been like a source of power, but it has also, when I was younger, especially around a certain type of girl, I was blocking her view of heaven, like in the way. Yeah, like, could you just and there I was bullied a lot in junior high, until I sort of found my fierceness, I think, when necessary only. But so Miranda and I, when we first met, because I was asking her to do this role, within 50 minutes we were crying about this. And so that moment was really personal to me too, because all of us have been humiliated in front of people like that, and sometimes it's even worse when that person didn't mean to do it. That lilies that fester smell far worse than weeds thing.
I'm just going to ask one or two more questions, and then it's to you. So start thinking of your excellent questions. You have filmed here in Massachusetts, and I wanted to talk to you about that. Just because Boston people love to talk about Boston, we really do. Tell me about places you've filmed locally and for what projects.
Well, the first thing that I said when I showed up here was, oh, it's so nice to be back at the Coolidge, like really loudly, and then I realized you guys were still watching the film, and I was like, shit. Too much enthusiasm. The first thing I shot here, I think, was Thoroughbreds, and we shot that in Cohasset, which was wonderful. We got like a nice, not quite beach-like existence, but we just had a really good time in that insane house. And then I did The New Mutants, and that was maybe an hour and a half outside of Boston. But yeah, I've spent a lot of time here. Yeah.
One last question, and I'm leaving the costume questions to you, so someone will have it. Just knowing that you have such a background with music, I was excited to hear score, to hear songs you chose. Can you tell, even the song in the credits, the end credits?
Oh yeah, Johnny Flynn wrote that for the movie. Yeah,
of course
Queen
he did.
Bee. So crushy, yeah.
Very crushy. Yes, but
I like to pretend when he mentions Autumn, he's singing about me, but I know
It was about you.
I share it with a certain season.
It was awesome. Sorry.
Can you tell us about any of the specific pieces you chose?
Yeah. Well, I was lucky enough to work with Isabel Waller-Bridge, who's a remarkable composer, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge's sister. And I did discover her through Fleabag, because her I found that she had such an incredible musical sense of humor, which you can especially see in season 2. And I met with her, I'm really inspired by Carl Stallings, who wrote a lot of the Merry Melodies and Bugs Bunny cartoons, music, and Disney films, like Pollyanna and stuff that were live action but felt like they had a cartoon animated film score. I told her that I wanted it to seem like the orchestra was misbehaving, and like the conductor was really overwhelmed, and he's fighting with Emma, and she keeps leaving the scene too quickly, that kind of thing. And so she did such a great job, and I also asked her to try writing in the key of the voices of the actors, so that, like in the scene with Miss Bates at the Haberdasher, we could have music without having to bury it behind her, and treated Miranda Hart's voice like an instrument. And there were also instruments that sort of identified each character. It's kind of like spaghetti westerns. The bassoons for Mr. Elton, and Emma had a theme, and Harriet had a theme, and the themes evolved depending on what was going on with them emotionally. And so that was a really great process. And then from the beginning, I had planned to use folk music from that era and some of it before. Because I felt like it was really important to me to see the sort of music that was going on in the drawing rooms, and then the music that was sort of the people, that sort of connected, it was almost like connected Harriet to the earth. And folk music was actually, Jane Austen had a lot of folk music in her collection of pieces of music that she hand copied. And there's a theory that it was the only time that women could be honest about their feelings. Sort of like when you hand someone a song and you're like, this is how I feel about you because you broke up with me. It's kind of like, the lyrics say it best. And so that it felt like a really important element that I kind of felt I hadn't seen enough of, and it was fun to use some recordings from the 60s and 70s that also inspired a lot of folk rock. And then there's some really important classical pieces that are just really important to me in that as well. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna have to see it again a third time to hear the score in the key of voice, which is fascinating. So who has questions? Right up front.
I wanted to say to Anya, you are a tremendous young actress. I have enjoyed your performances so much. And
Thank you.
Every actress wants the camera to be on her face and to deliver the line. But what I like the most is even in your silent parts, whether it be Emma or it be the witch, you really sort of belong to the place per se. So even whilst you're doing household activities in that house with the most disagreeable parents on the planet in The Witch, or in this one when you're in the hothouse just selecting the flowers, there is a certain comfort that you have with your surroundings and environment that I think is as much a part of your performance as the delivery of the line. So I predict great things for you, and it's so much fun to see you on screen.
Thank you.
Things
Thank you so much.
predicted.
It's so sweet of you. I really appreciate
agree.
that.
Who has my costume question? Where? Oh, well, yeah, there is one. I might have to let the one person who I've seen tonight in period costume ask the question.
Yes.
And please stand.
Oh, please. Thank you.
So less period costume question and more period dance question.
Oh, good. I like that.
So how was it researching into the time period? Because there's so many iterations of historic dance, especially with the Regency time.
Yeah.
Of whether it be, the Playford manuals or any of those other dance manuals, and then even learning the dances is completely different from a lot of different styles.
Yeah.
So what kind of inspirations did you each draw from as a director and as an actress?
You're awesome. Let's just start with that. Okay, now you go.
I was lucky enough to have Michael Nunn, who was in the Royal Ballet, and he has directed a couple of ballet films. Romeo and Juliet is the one that's out right now. And he had a lot of knowledge of sort of period dancing. I had done a lot of research about, everyone was crazy for dancing. And part of the reason, I think that British stiff upper lip thing really came later from the Germans, with Queen Victoria. There was definitely there were a lot of rules and etiquette, but there was a little bit more of a looseness to that time period and like this desire to have fun, I think. And dancing was the only time that people could really touch like that. They could, touch each other's backs or their hands. And so it was sort of, for young people, it was really thrilling, I think. And so anytime there was music, I think, the floor would be cleared and people would try and dance. And so we didn't select specific dances, but we did stay within the sort of rules of the type of dancing. And the music that we used were period dance pieces. That were played on period instruments with gut strings and stuff. So I think if that, yeah. And then you guys.
We had so much fun.
Yeah.
We didn't have a lot of time to learn because our shooting schedule was pretty intense. So anytime we weren't filming something, you would try and grab your dance partner and be like, let's practice this because we have to make it look good.
Yeah, hotel hallways.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun to see them. I loved the panic that I instilled in them. I was like, we're not cutting to the fun spinning part. You guys need to really learn this.
I have a background as a dancer, so I was fully in, really enjoying it. But when we were actually filming it, we filmed it over, I can never get this right, 2 days or 3 days?
2 days.
2 days.
Yeah.
2 very intense days. And we kind of shot it a bit like a spy thriller. It was because you're obviously doing the dancing, but then there's so much going on subtextually with, oh my goodness, I looked at Frank Churchill and he didn't look at me back and fuck you. But also Mr. Knightley, hi, haven't seen you this way before. And
they were all reporting to me I just not gonna look to Frank Churchill. And then I was like, okay, and I was sending I was like, okay, we had 3 cameras.
It was very intense.
You catch that look on this take, and you catch that look on this take. Because it really was where all the misunderstandings were colliding in the story. It is kind of the first mystery novel, detective novel. And so, it was really important to all of us to lay these clues in. And we had a folder for each character, the editor and I, looks of desire, fuck you looks, and, like that. Yeah, Emma and Knightley had a lot of fuck you, yeah, fuck you.
So I love The Great Gatsby. It's been made as a movie a few times. A Robert Redford film I thought was great. The Leonardo DiCaprio film was great. So but they're both very different interpretations of The Great Gatsby. So I'm wondering, when you were preparing for a Jane Austen movie, there's been a lot of great films made, very different ways to tell the story. Were you conscientious or thoughtful about what has been made, or was it just more productive to say, this is a brand new film, let's not get bogged down in the past, let's just do it. So did the past inform how you directed and acted, or was it more productive to just say, it's a clean slate, it's an important story, but let's do it in a bold new way? Because I thought it was amazing and excellent.
Oh, thank you. Well, for me, I didn't think about I didn't really think about comparisons. I think a classic story like this that's as important, as important a novel as it is, can be personalized a lot of different ways because it's written so well. So I just sort of, my gut instincts were what led me, and one of the things was, and I think Clueless is one of the best Emmas, honestly, But one of the things that was really important to me was that they seemed young, because they are, and I think that really helps with the mistakes that Emma's making. So I sort of wanted to do a very, really faithful period adaptation in the sense of the etiquette and the history and all the colors were Georgian colors. It seems exaggerated, but we were actually it was all based on historical research. But I wanted it to be sort of like a high school movie inside of that, which I kind of think that Jane Austen wrote about the hubris of youth so well. And just because the story is 200 years old, the characters are not 200 years old. It's 21, And yeah, so I didn't really think about comparisons because I don't think that's healthy. I sort of celebrate, I don't think there's too many versions of William Shakespeare, and I don't think there will ever be too many versions of Jane Austen, because she's such an important writer. That's my opinion. Yeah. Yeah. Go.
Right there.
I really liked the production design and the settings. I was just wondering, were those sets that you built, or were those locations that you went out and found? And if so, what was it like filming those kind of locations with the animals and the people walking around?
So cool. Yeah.
Yeah, for those who didn't hear, the question was about production design, sets, and what was outside and inside.
Yeah, so the Georgian period was, as I was saying a second ago, was really colorful. We've seen a lot of movies where everything looks kind of antiqued, and sort of people think, because they see things in the museums or old houses with faded wallpaper, that they were living in antique settings back then. So it was exciting to be able to do the production design that we did. And so we did a long location search, especially for Emma's house, because that was the one that I really wanted to turn that into her dollhouse. So that was Furl, which is in Lewis, owned by Lord Gage, and they were really behind us restoring it to the Georgian colors. They did have one room that was already mint colored, but yeah, so we wallpapered the dining room with that beautiful wallpaper is period wallpaper that we installed, and the room before was like a billiard room, and it was dark red. So we did curtains in every room, and cushions and upholstered furniture, and I worked really closely with my production design and my costumer and the hair and makeup. We worked together from the beginning so that when Emma walks on set, she's like the last little puzzle piece in the puzzle, so that there weren't these conflicting design countries, and that was how I think we were able to make it look so real. But it was, I'm also was obsessed, okay, the sheep have to be period too, and the right sheep for that region. I went totally insane.
You went down a sheep cave hole.
I did, yeah.
Just boom.
Yeah. I was like, are those the right sheep, or is that farmer that keeps walking into our shot?
We have time for one or two more, and I feel like I've neglected the back of this room. Anybody back there? All right, we're going to go right to the middle, right there.
So I'll ask the costume question. I noticed that this movie is so much another period movie showing how kind of Little Women, and I noticed the costumes in this were, quite different from those in that movie. Can you explain how this style was unique to this particular period in England, and how it's different from those other periods at a similar time?
Yeah, so this is 1815, and actually the Regency period in England, there were a lot of there were kind of a lot of changes within that sort of time period. And I did a lot of research with fashion illustrations and also caricatures, sort of cartoonists that were poking fun at fashion, which was really a fun resource. But the corseting was more about, honestly, a lot of the fashion was kind of inspired by the classical sculptures that the aristocracy were stealing from Italy and Greece. And when you go to a museum and see those Greek and Roman sculptures, you can see a lot of the hairstyles, the tight curls, and you feel, a lot of the fashion came from that. And this was also the first time in fashion that men could see the shape of women's bodies, like when the wind blew, they weren't wearing tight waists and corseted, caged hoop skirts. And so it was about to go out again for the Victorian period, but this was a very diaphanous, sort of ballet-like kind of period. And also the men wore a lot of color as well, which I felt like I hadn't seen enough of. And some films have done it, but a lot of mixing of florals and plaids, and so a lot of that stuff really came from real inspiration from Ackerman's journal, and also that French one that I forgot the name of. Sorry. I'm sure you know. No, someone here knows. Yeah, and I was able to go also into, like, I went to an old print shop in London, and he had a lot of fashion illustrations and caricatures that hadn't been exposed to the light. So I got to see the colors as they were originally meant to be, and that was really thrilling, and that was a big resource. And Alexandra Byrne, who won an Oscar for Elizabeth the Golden Age, already was a fashion historian for all periods, and then, you know, I think, like, the actors then went through their own education on the period, and, you know, and Anya was able to really help create her character's clothing, you know, so everything was there to tell a story and to tell you about the character, but it was all based on fashion history, even Mrs. Elton's hair. Wow, yeah.
One more. Right there?
Sure.
Yes.
Can you talk about the nosebleeds?
The question is about the nosebleed.
I get nosebleeds all the time. Turns out Anya does too, especially when we're about to film a nosebleed scene.
Yeah, so it was in the script. Really excited to do it. We discussed it. It was always part of Autumn's pitch because
it was part of humanizing the characters, you know, and you can't really, you know, everyone. And it turns out later, actually, Eleanor Catton, the writer, and I found out that in Old English folklore, a nosebleed is a symbol of true love. Which we thought about lying and pretending that was why we put it in, but it was really because my body has betrayed me many times in my life, especially romantic times. So lots of humiliating romantic experiences, and I thought it would be really funny to sort of cause one more problem in their romantic exploits, but on the morning of.
Yeah, so the plan was to shoot Johnny's coverage, then, you know, put like fake blood up my nose and have it come out after he asked me to marry him. And Autumn grabbed my face and she was like, and I just want it to go right here. And we were like, yeah, okay, that's gonna be great. It's gonna be fantastic. And then we're doing the scene and my nose starts bleeding and it falls exactly where it's supposed to, and Johnny's like losing it. He's just like, what do I do? What do I do? And Autumn's just like, oh my God, wait, cover her face. No, don't cover her face. No, wait, it's perfect. Wait. And so people came in and cleaned me up, and then
I'm like, put your head back, and then can I just tell this part, because I love this part. She goes like this, and Johnny's still panicking, and she's like, Johnny, ask me to marry you.
So yeah, that's my blood on screen, and I'm very proud of it. I have no idea how it happened, but it's
method.
The spirit of Emma possessed me, and it just it happened.
I have to say that morning, like 5 a.m, I get this like little video sent to me, and she's like, I've got a nosebleed, like over the sink, and I looked at the video, and then I got a nosebleed, and I was like, what the is going on?
And then that day, I got a nosebleed for like 5 hours or some shit like that. Sorry. And Autumn was like holding my head above a pink sink, and we're both there and like, oh, this sucks. And she's like, I wish I took a picture of it. And I was like, I wish you took a picture of it too. It's so pretty.
You guys, the blood with the pink sink looked amazing. I mean, it was like, and there was a pink carpet too. And I was like, fuck, why didn't I?
She really cares about my well-being, but it was really pretty.
I want to thank you two so much for coming. I want to thank you for supporting the Coolidge. You're wonderful as an audience. Have fun taking this around. Where is your next stop?
Toronto. We have some time here, and then Toronto.
Yeah, we have a next day in Boston, and then we finish off in Toronto.
Excellent. Well, we welcome you, and congratulations. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you guys for spending your night with us.